What's up, guys? Welcome back to Coding Kaiju. My name is Diego, and once again, we are picking up right where we left off. So, last time we were working on this, we actually introduced a bug into the game. And so, the first thing we're going to do today is fix that. So, go ahead and open up the game script, and the bug is here in this for loop. So in this for loop, what we're attempting to do is turn off all the audio that each asteroid makes. So we loop through every node in the group asteroids. And if it's not queued for deletion, we tell its audio stream child to stop. The problem that we encountered was if you open up the asteroid scene, this is the audio stream player 2D that we're referring to. We're stopping this audio from playing. But our asteroid smalls are also in the asteroids group, and this asteroid small, this scene, does not have an audio stream player. And that's where our bug is happening. Go ahead and reopen up the game scene. And this is actually an easy fix. Basically, we want to check and make sure that the asteroid does have that child node. So here in the if statement, so if it's in the group asteroids, we're going to check if it's queued for deletion, and we're also going to make sure that it has the child node, audio stream player 2D. And with that, our bug is fixed. All right, let's move on. So right now, I would say that our game is a little too easy. Any high score you get in the game is more indicative of your patience rather than your skill as a player. So we're gonna fix that. What we're gonna do is increase the difficulty of the game over time. The longer you stay alive, the more difficult the game will get. And the way we're going to ramp up the difficulty is by spawning asteroids at a higher rate. More asteroids on the screen, the more things you have to dodge, the more likely it is you're going to die. So to do that, let's open up the asteroid spawner and its script. And we're going to add a new node of type timer. And we're going to rename that to difficulty timer. So for this difficulty timer, this is the timer that's going to ring, and every time it rings, the difficulty will increase. So we want it to auto start, and we're going to set the wait time to 5 seconds. Let's go ahead and connect the signal, double click the timeout signal, connect it to the asteroid spawner, and it'll create a new function for us. So for this function, let's define some new variables up top here. First one we're going to define is called asteroid spawn interval, and we're going to say it's of type float and assign it the initial value of 2. And let's make another variable called difficulty index. I'm going to say it's also of type float and give it an initial value of 1.5. I tried naming these variables as best I could based on how they're used. We're going to use them right now, and you'll see how they're used, and maybe you can come up with a better variable name. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the spawn timer's wait time as a calculation between these two asteroids. And these two variables are already floats, so casting them might be unnecessary, but when I was testing this, I was running into some bugs. So I ended up just casting these as floats to make sure the math came out, the result came out as a float in the math here. Oops, we don't want the 2.0 there, we want to use the variable. Asteroid spawn interval. Okay. And so what we're going to do is anytime the difficulty timer rings out, we're going to change how often asteroids spawn with this calculation here. And then after that, we're going to increase the difficulty index. And then just to see what's going on, you can go ahead and print the wait time for us. This is purely for debugging. Feel free to comment this part out. So if we run the project, we'll be able to see how often asteroids are spawning down here in the output window. And over time, the asteroids spawn at a higher rate. And you can tell it's slow, but more and more asteroids are spawning. Okay, so now that we've made our game a little more difficult, the player and ourselves are going to be dying a lot more often. So we need a better way to restart the game than just killing the whole process and recompiling and relaunching the game. Let's make restarting the game an in-game feature. So this is going to get a little involved because we've got a lot of moving parts in our game. So the first thing we want to do is come up here to the project settings because we're going to define a new input, a new action. And I'm going to call it restart game. Go ahead and add that. Now let's add a keybind to it. And I'm just going to use spacebar, which is also our shooting key. All right, first thing we're going to do with that is give our players some in-game instructions on how to restart the game. And we can do that with a simple label. So select the game over label here in the game scene and make it visible so we can see what we're working with. We're simply just going to create a new label as a child of that. And this will be the instructions. And we can just name it, restart label. Okay, open up back the inspector and you can write whatever instructions you want. I'm just gonna say press space to restart. Maybe we'll have space in single quotes. So as usual, we gotta set all our settings for this label. So make the align and v-align properties centered. And really quick, I'm just gonna set all those font settings we've been using so far. So custom fonts, new dynamic font. I'm gonna load Ubuntu Mono Bold. And I'm going to set the size to 42 and enable some colors. Going to enable font shadow. And then, of course, place it on the screen. I'm actually going to place it right over the player because when the player dies, that chip won't be there and it won't be overlapping like that. Okay. So we have our label. Go ahead and turn the game over label off again. Make sure to keep the restart label on because it will inherit its parent's visibility. But when we use the code to turn this game over label on, then we'll automatically be able to see both of them. Okay, since we're using the spacebar for both shooting and to restart our game, we're going to need to implement a check to see whether or not the game is over. So go ahead and open up the game scene and its script. And at the top here, we're going to actually define a new variable. And it's going to be a Boolean. It's simply going to be called is game over. And by default, it's false. Now I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the file here, and we're going to check for some input. So we're going to use the built-in function underscore unhandled input. So we're going to say if the game is over and the event is action released restart game, then we're going to call the function underscore restart game. And let's go ahead and define that function. Restart game. Okay, so when this game over timer runs out, that's where we're going to say that the game is over. Game over equals true. And then when the player restarts the game, when this restart game function gets called, then we're going to say the game is set that to false. Now, let's write our restart game function. So our restart game function is actually going to be made up of multiple other functions because we want our nodes to handle their restart operations themselves. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So first thing we're going to do is undo everything we did here with the music player. And for that, I'm just going to call the function func undo game over. And then we'll call it here. So undo game over. First thing we're going to do is make the label disappear. So set the visibility back to false. And we want the game over music to stop. And we want to load back up the gameplay music instead of the game over music. Then we turned off looping, so we got to turn that back on. Got to set the volume back to what it was before. I had mine at -10. And then we want the regular gameplay music to play. Next function we're going to implement is one to respawn the player. So call that one respawn player. So let's make an instance of the player. We're going to have to load in that scene. Player underscore scene equals load. Where's our player? In objects? No, in characters. Okay, we're loading our player scene and instance it here. All right, set the player's position. And you want to set the position to where you put it before. So to do that, to look at that, you can open the game and then check out the position here. And I'm actually going to round out these numbers, 626 and 680. Save that, and then you can position it in here, in the same spot. All right, and then don't forget to add it to the scene tree. So since we're spawning our player through code here, we've actually created an unfortunate side effect. So here we instance the player through the Godot interface. And we connected the signals here through the Godot interface. Why is that a problem? Well, when we instance the player here through code, those signals are not connected. So what we're going to have to do to fix that is manually connect these signals through code. So luckily for us, there's only 2 of them, and you can see them here. And the way we're going to do this manually is in the ready function, the built-in ready function. So let's go ahead and define that for the player. Notice I'm editing player.gd for the player here. And so one of them was for the camera, where the screen shake for the camera. So let's get the parent of the player, which is going to be the game node. And then we're going to say get node. And we want to get the main camera. And then we're going to connect the laser shoot signal to the camera. And we're going to call the function on player laser shoot. And now the other signal here is the player died signal. Go ahead and connect that as well. So let's get the game node, which is simply get parent. I'm storing these in variables to make the code a little cleaner, and I think it's a little easier to understand as well. Player died. Connect the player died signal to the game and call the function on player died. Since we already defined it, we get it in that autocomplete there. And since now we're connecting these signals through the ready function, we should disconnect them here. Right click and disconnect them. So open up the game script again and make sure we're calling these new functions. So we'll call the respawn player function. So we can go ahead and run our project and see what we got so far. So we're still getting that screen shake when we shoot a laser, which is good. That means the signals are still connected. When we die, press space, and we have the player respawns, but the asteroids don't shoot, and notice the score here didn't reset either. So let's go ahead and fix that as well. So let's do the asteroids first. So go ahead and open up the Asteroid Spawner. So we're actually going to define a new function, and this is what I was talking about earlier. The Asteroid Spawner is going to handle its own implementation for what happens when we need to restart the game. So that's why we're writing the function here. So we're just going to call it restart. So just to make sure nothing weird happens, let's stop all the timers. And the difficulty timer. And let's set our 2 variables, asteroid spawn interval, back to their default values. And then we'll restart the timers. Okay. Let's reopen up the game scene. And then the other thing we talked about was the score. So right now, all the score is just handled in this label here. So let's open up this script. And this one's going to be easy. I'm just going to simply call this one reset. And we're going to set the text value of the label to the string of 0. And then once again, open up the game script and don't forget to call these new functions. So Asteroid Spawner dot restart. And then this one's kind of obnoxious. Reset. And with that, our game is finished. You can go ahead and run it. It's done. If you guys made it this far, if you've been following along, I want to thank you. I hope this tutorial series was valuable to you. I hope you learned something. Hope you learned a little bit more how to use Godot, and I hope you learned a little bit more about programming in general. Moving forward, I want you to challenge you guys to actually build upon and expand upon what we've built here. This game we've built together. Add some more features to the game. Like I said before, you can, maybe add some stats on the game over screen. Maybe you can add a different kind of laser. Maybe a missile. When you click, M on the keyboard, it shoots a missile instead of a laser that has a, larger explosion radius or something. Just throwing some ideas out there. And I want to know what you guys thought of this tutorial series. I want to hear your feedback. Let me know in the comments below. If you do feel like this tutorial series was helpful, please like the video, subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.